Good morning and welcome back to the channel. We are really excited to start the process of getting our cabin dried in, but before we can start putting on the metal roofing, we have a couple of things that we need to do first. First, we have to install our eave trim, then we have to go up top and install the mesh for the vent, and then we can pre-drill all of the holes for our metal roofing before it can go on.
All that for 1 second of work.
Yep.
Hold it. And let me know when it's good. What I'm about to do here is get my clutch set correctly on my drill for all of our fasteners for the metal roofing and the trim. And I'm going to start at a low setting and I'm going to keep turning it up until it gets to where it just seats the washer perfectly so it seals well. The biggest problems with fasteners on roofs are usually they're installed crooked and then the seal doesn't have a flat sealing surface, or they're put in too tight, and when you put them in too tight it expands the washer out really badly and it just doesn't seal well. So what I'm going to do is get it set up perfectly and then it should be good for the rest of the build. I'll have to still pay attention to make sure that they're all seating correctly as I'm going, but this will be a lot more accurate than trying to run an impact, because even with turning the impact onto a lower setting, it's not going to quite seat it perfectly every time. Now here's how I'll drill into the trailer. Just need to go lower. Dang, that's all the way down. I would say probably perfect. One piece of hardware that we were having a problem getting up here were these ZXL screws. These are a lot nicer than your standard screw that would go in metal roofing. I don't know if you can see, but on this style, the old style, the cap isn't built into the screw head, whereas this one, it's made into it. The washer itself is a lot more robust, as well as the cup that's on this will actually protect the washer from UV rays And it eliminates one leak spot as well where that doesn't have a seam, whereas this does have a seam. We are using number 14 screws here. These number 10s really aren't quite strong enough for this area. It would work for a little chicken coop or something probably, but I wouldn't risk it on my house. These ZXL screws are a little bit more expensive, but they do have a 40-year warranty, whereas these, I'm pretty sure they're only good for 10 years at the most, and you're getting up there to replace all your fasteners. That's too much for me. I don't want to go up there and do that. If these can last 40 years, technically the metal roofing only has a 40-year warranty, so that should get you to the end of your warranty on your roof if you never actually have an issue. However, if the metal roofing is still in good condition after 40 years, I might be able to go up there and just put another set of these in there, and that would get me through the rest of my lifetime. So if I only have to do that one time, I'd be really happy. These smaller screws, they are ZXLs as well. We'll be using them at the laps, so only on the outside where the two panels meet up. It doesn't actually go down into the wood. It's only to stitch the panels together so that the wind can't get under there and pull it up. We are going to be putting these fasteners 24-inch on center in every panel in the valley. We are not putting them in the rib, and there are a couple of reasons for that. When it's in the valley, it's snug against the wood. It's compact pressed against that. It actually has something positive to connect to. When you put it in the rib, and you have expansion and contraction because of temperature change, the metal is going to move, and when you have a long screw going down into the wood through that rib, it can rock like that, and over time of doing that, it's going to work loose, and that's what causes leaks. 99% of manufacturers that sell you this style panel all say to put it in the valley. The only place you put it on the rib is at the stitch. I've checked Canada and USA, and that's the way to do it. Now that we've got our clutch set on the drill, we're gonna go ahead and put a couple of these in our eave trim, which you probably noticed that eave trim isn't for gutters. We do not plan on doing gutters. They would most certainly get ripped off with this roof, as much snow is coming off of it. We will come back at a later time and put a drain in the ground for the water to drain away from the foundation. So let's get started.
I forgot how low this side is. There's a big ice chunk in this one.
We're gonna go ahead and pre-drill all these because running a string line across the roof on a roof like this, we would have to move the ladder a million times. So if we pre-drill them, at least then we can just put all the screws in as we're going across. The only problem is that the end panels cannot be pre-drilled because, well, the end panels can be pre-drilled in the centers, but they cannot be on the outside because if we were to drill through all these panels, it would actually be wrong. So 4 of these will have to be separated off to the side, and they'll have to be drilled differently on the ends. For right now, I'm going to go ahead and do all of the panels in the centers where they can be all drilled the same.
Just trying to like lift it from this. up any farther on this side?
Open it up towards the other side.
Okay. We got the first sheet of metal up, and before we got started we had to find square. So we used the 3-4-5 triangle method, and essentially those numbers satisfy the Pythagorean theorem. So we were able to find that on our roof and make sure that the first piece of metal went on perfectly square.
I'm gonna pull it up so it's flat against the roof, and then we gotta get it over that hump. What do I gotta do?
Oh, it's still stuck on the corner. Good morning. We're getting a little bit of a later start today. The wind is really gusting, and we were hoping that it would die down a little bit before we got out here, but unfortunately it's just too unsafe for Chris to be up on a ladder handling big sheets of metal, and it's really not a good idea to try and get 30-foot sheets of metal up on the roof with such strong wind gusts. We don't want it to pull the metal off and knock Chris off the ladder or bend the metal. So we're going to work on the doors today and hopefully get a better day tomorrow so we can knock out some more of this metal. We were able to get the first door on. We did not start the second door yet because the wind died down, and we're going to try and get some more of this metal on. To get the metal over to the roof, what we're doing is Chris is basically like flicking the metal roofing up, and essentially what that does is it keeps the metal from scratching the piece underneath of it, from dragging it. Because they're 30-foot sheets, they're too long for us both to just pick up. So once he gets it up in the air and on its end, it's a lot stronger. And then we roll the sheet up and it makes it super rigid. So that way we can carry it over there and there's no way for it to flex and tin can the metal. Once we get it over there, we're able to stand it up without it flexing. We're also adding pipe insulation to the top part of the metal roofing. That keeps the metal from tearing the underlayment as we're pushing it up. Can you lift up just a little bit? Well, what do you think? One row or one side down?
Yep, halfway.
Good morning. We're back out here this morning. We're ready to start getting the metal put on this side of the roof. And as you can see, it did snow again. Luckily, it's only a couple of inches this time, so it's not going to really affect us building it all. The days this time of year are really short, and between the high winds and the snow, we had a lot of time on the other side of the roof where we had to work when it started to get dark because that's when the weather was at its best. And so unfortunately, we know that that doesn't make for the greatest filming, but the next couple of days are supposed to be clear. So hopefully we are able to get this knocked out in the daylight. At least flow it out. Because it's definitely not tight. Lift it a little bit.
I'm about to go up on the peak, and hopefully I'm moving our fall protection hooks for the last time. I'm going to install them permanently under the ridge cap. That way they stick out from under there, and we'll have one on both sides. And anytime that we have to do any roof maintenance, clean a chimney, check screws, anything like that, we'll be able to go up and hook to either side with the fall protection rope, and we'll have a safe working area. Of course, there's dangerous wind right when I'm about to switch it. It's nice and pliable from being inside and being warm.
I bet.
We do have fascia trim that gets tucked up behind here to protect all of this wood on the overhang. However, we have to wait until we finish boxing in the overhang to put that on. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and affix this with screws up through here. I'll just have to back the screws back out whenever we do the fascia trim, and then we'll slide it in and re-screw it in. On this ridge cap, we're adding in this vented closure at the top. That way it can allow the whole roof system to vent out through the cap. You're probably wondering why I'm putting this on the ridge cap instead of up on the roofing, and that's just because 400 times up and down the ladder is already enough. So instead of having to move the ladder back about 20 more times back and forth to go up and put this up, I'm just sticking it directly to this. I don't see an issue with that. It's still stuck to something, and when this gets screwed into the roof, it's going to be smashed so tight there's no way it's going to fall out of there. It'll rot out of there before it falls out. But this will actually help a lot with keeping wind from driving rain back up in there at the top as well. Well, that job was a lot bigger and took a lot longer than expected, but it's finally under wraps. I'm glad that this thing's waterproof. This was the biggest metal roof I've ever done. Other than this one, I think the biggest I've done was maybe a 12 by 20 roof on a shed, which is a lot different. There's a lot to go wrong when the panels are this long. It definitely was difficult to get them up there without kinking them, and it was also just difficult to keep everything straight and running perfect the whole way down. There's a lot to go wrong on a roof this big. So it took a lot of extra time just to keep everything good. And being that it was off of a ladder, it made it even more difficult. I would definitely not recommend trying to reproduce what I did here. Definitely get yourself a lift or put in a driveway beside your house so that you can actually use a lift. We really don't have the option without putting a bunch of stone in on both sides. It's really bad on that other side. We would never be able to get a lift over there safely.
I think the camera makes it really deceiving because there is a pretty good drop off on that side when we're taking the ladder up and down, and it would take a lot of stone to be able to get a lift up back there.
Yeah, for sure.
I am really glad that Chris is done working on that ladder until we have to do our siding, but I'm glad he's no longer going to be on this roof anymore. It's definitely a little nerve-wracking seeing him go up and down the ladder 400 or 500 times, about 30 feet up in the air.
It's a little hard on my feet and knees.
We do have about an hour of daylight left, so we're going to do our best and see if we can get the back door in.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.